Damn, that gets thunderously loud in my earphones. Wow, damn it. Good job, Peter. Anyway, yeah, JimBob's an idiot. Part of that is I was gonna, talk to him, go on to, his stream, because he's got a stream running right now. And they're like, oh, cowards, where are the atheists and all this bullshit. Well, they put out a Discord link. You got to go to the Discord. You got to turn on your voice over on Discord. I'm not sure. I've done that like maybe twice in my life, and I don't ever want to do it again. And then you're looking at this big Discord black screen. And then you got to go look at JimBob, and you can't see who's on. You can't tell what their names are. You can't hear them very well. The other day, he had like two or three people talking, and you can't tell who's talking. And you can't tell who the hell he's talking to. And to make matters worse, he's got their volume turned down so that you can't really hear him. And I'm like, go fuck yourself, JimBob. if you actually got the balls to come and talk to me, come over to a place where we know how to invite guests, where you can see, like you can see Dave on the stream right now. You know it's Dave, right? I mean, is that so goddamn hard, JimBob? And then the other thing is, if you want guests to come in, there's a little pin thing where you can pin the StreamYard link on, the thing. And he absolutely refuses to do that. And the other reason that JimBob's an idiot, because I hear him going on about, atheists don't have a reason for survival to count because they're atheists and they don't have the presuppositional shit that we have. That's one thing. And then he's going on about evolution is not a scientific theory, and all of this with a surety and an arrogance that indicates that he's an idiot, because anybody who had any humility at all wouldn't be so sure of themselves and wouldn't have that smug look on their face while they're going up against thousands and tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of biologists and scientists that are telling you that evolution is a theory. And JimBob, who I'm sure he's going to write a paper any day and show us how evolution is not a theory. And so did you engage with him? Did you ever get what his evolution is not a theory bullshit was even all about? I mean, what was his argument that it's not a...
I'm pretty sure he uses a creationist argument that it has to be observable.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And then he goes through the scientific method.
And he just denies everything that he doesn't like. Like I said, right. Evolution's not a scientific theory. Okay, well, Christianity's not a religion.
Yeah.
Right?
So is he a huckster?
No, it's not a religion. You know what I mean? It is a religion. No, it's not a religion. Right. Well, what are you going to say?
JimBob says it's not a religion. Oh,
no, that's my counter.
That's
my counter to JimBob. If evolution's not a scientific theory, then Christianity's not a religion. It's just that stupid to just say it isn't what it's defined as, right?
Right. Yeah.
My hand is not a hand. My hand is a microphone, right? Because I'm just going to say my hand is not a hand. Forget the definition of a hand. It's a microphone. Well,
then he gets some, he gets some random atheist in, and he let's see, picture in picture. No, that's not what we want. What do I want? Why does none of this work? What is none of this? The only thing that, oh my God, cinema layout, Shift 8. Okay, none of my layout stuff is working. Let's see. Let me try this. Go to this. Okay, that works. Well, that's interesting. Oh, that doesn't work. So why don't have you had trouble with layouts on StreamYard lately?
I just use present for whatever I want to put up.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, I'm using OBS and anyway, so I can't get the side-by-side stuff. Oh, there it is. There's a side-by-sides. I don't know what the other ones don't do anything, and I'm not entirely sure.
Well, you can do custom down there. You can make your own if you want to.
Yeah. Oh, let me stop the cam for a second. I got a little problem here. Oh, Jesus. Technical difficulties. Anyway, and then he gets some random kid on there, some atheist, right? You can't recite the scientific theory. It's like, who can? I mean, who wants to? Like, I'm pretty sure that, yeah, some biologist could probably come up with it, on the fly, maybe, but, he might skip a step like JimBob does or, whatever, but nobody gives a shit, JimBob.
Well, that's what our back and forth was. All I asked him was, do alleles change over populations? And he's like, yeah, traits change across populations. And I'm like, well, there you go. That's what evolution demonstrates. And then you can go from there, because, just swabbing people isn't evidence. And it's like, no, swabbing people is how you can check populations for for genetic testing, right?
Right.
And you never get the chance. And I said, and there's others, other lines of evidence, but you never get the chance to say, all the other lines of evidence, because it's just going to be, you just got a swab. Oh, okay. Well, I got a swab. Here's a swab. And then they'll go into some nonsense and make a joke about swabs or something. Okay. You're not going to get anywhere.
Yeah. Pretty much it. Let's see, start the cam here. So this is basically, if you ask ChatGPT, what is the scientific methods that you come up with? So first of all, there's an observation. So you notice in describing something in the world, events or conditions in a careful, orderly way. So you observe something, right? And so what we observe is that there's a great diversity of life in the world. So our observation is not just one observation. You just don't go on and look at a squirrel and say, I got a theory. You're looking at potentially looking at all of life, including the life we haven't seen yet, right? So we're coming up with our observation is the diversity of life on the planet today, right? So then you formulate a question, and the question would be, how did that diversity get here? What causes diversity? Why are things, and another part of the question would be, why are things related? And for evolution, the list of questions would be tens of thousands long, basically going down into increasing detail as to, okay, why is this, why are beetles at all, right? What about this particular species of beetles? What about this particular family of beetles, maybe? And then you go down to species, then you go down to this particular beetle. And you can ask questions all day long, and then you ask further questions. How did it develop? How do genes cause an animal to be in the first place, right? All that shit, that's embryology. And so the question becomes extremely complicated. It isn't some stupid thing that some random atheist off the street is going to be able to just pop out of his brain and tell you about, right? But does that mean that the random atheist isn't justified in saying that he believes that evolution is a theory and he believes it's true? No. The average person kind of goes with the consensus of the human population and the consensus of academia, and that's where we get our clues from as to what's true and what's not true. I don't know all the nuances of climate change. I've looked into a few things. I had to for myself to convince myself that humans can affect the climate. And I had to do a few calculations and stuff. But for the most part, I rely on people who know what the hell they're talking about. all the PhDs. Well, okay, well, it's a conspiracy, right? They're atheists and they just want you to believe in evolution. That is bullshit because 30% of scientists are Christians still, right? It's surprising that when you're a scientist, 60% of the average population is Christian and 30% of scientists are. So apparently science does kind of erode your belief or cause some people to lose their quote unquote faith. I don't know.
Well, anyway. it changes too with the higher levels of academia. Then it goes way up that there's a lot more that are not believers.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, anybody can do good science.
Yeah.
Although Peter Atkins says no good scientist believes in God. So.
Yeah. But then you got Dr. Joel Duff, who's a really nice man, good man, wonderful channel.
Yeah, he is.
Very much a Christian, very much believes in the whole. I don't think he believes in the literal flood stories and all that. And I'm not sure where he is on Adam and Eve, but I don't think he's the kind of Christian that I don't think he even gives a shit. He's agnostic about all that. He doesn't have to commit himself to believing something in the past.
He's committed against YEC, that's for sure.
Yes, he is. Yeah, and he works very hard on it, which is pretty good. But okay, so then what you do is you come up with a hypothesis, proposing a hypothesis, and that's what Darwin started to do with his. He made he did 10 years of observation and looking and getting all of these. He had insects pinned everywhere and all this, information, drawings of birds and all this stuff. And he came up with a hypothesis about about natural selection. But that was, it was 150 years ago or more. And now our hypothesis is much more fine-grained and intricate in evolution. It concerns population genetics and like the environment and just a whole host of things. There's a lot of molecular biology. It's a very, very complex hypothesis. So it isn't something that you're just going to like, oh, okay, like the trend seems to be change in allele frequency over time. And yeah, that kind of like puts it in a nutshell. But I mean, that leaves out so much. That just leaves out so much that you don't even want to embarrass ourselves by trying to state this in one cover term, right? But some people do, and each to his own. That's okay. Well, then you go and do data collection, which we've been doing for hundreds and hundreds of years. We've been collecting data about life, and you gather and recording data and observations from experiments. Now, one of those things is looking at what happens to a genome between generation 1 and generation 2. And we can see that there are mutations, right, in every generation. That genomes don't copy exactly correctly, right? And then you go from there and you look backwards and you think, okay, if I have a large population, it's going to be a little bit different, because if there's a mutation between Joe Smith and Joe Jr., okay, Joe Jr. may not have children, and if he has children, his children's children may not have children, right? And so it drifts out of the population, and that's called genetic drift, So when you look at populations, you have to look at all the various populations. Now, there are humans, which are very, very different because of, how we've globalized and how our culture and everything is really kind of messed up how we are evolving compared to how a hillside with a group of Coleoptera beetles is evolving, right? We could look at differing sizes of populations, and of course that's going to end up like you could model it mathematically, and you could look at but modeling things mathematically is not reality, right? Because the those populations, they are shrinking and growing and shrinking and growing, and they're moving, and they're existing across time. And the environment is going to be changing the whole time they exist, right? I mean, just like from night to day is one environmental change, right? Seasonal is another environmental change. And there's long and short-term trends in climates where things change. There are things where a volcano could erupt and split a population in half. A river could basically, like an ice dam could break, and a river will divide a population in half. And there's all of this complexity. And so the theory of evolution works with all of these different, moving parts. And then JimBob wants to talk about, what's the random variable? Take your goddamn pick. There's an astronomical number of variables we're looking at. And the whole point.
He was talking about the lungs earlier, and it's like, why did you need lungs? And, well, the oxygen levels changed. Well, then why didn't everything else die? It's like, no, it's because they moved into fresh water where oxygen levels were lower, and they adapted to that. It's why didn't everything else die question that they always like to use. If you didn't have lungs yet, how did they breathe? Well, there's a lot of other ways to get oxygen without lungs.
Yeah. Well, I think one hypothesis is the air bladder of fish basically evolved as an air bladder to control where they were in the column. What is it? Not benthic, but the other one. Anyway, where they were in the water column, right? They could, be on the bottom, or they could, be in the middle, or they could be on top. And then the air bladders absorb a little bit of oxygen, and air bladders basically could have evolved, to have more sacs, more bladders, more cell membranes in there. And eventually they would be an alternative way to absorb oxygen. But the goddamn gills aren't going to disappear in one generation. The oxygen isn't going to disappear in the atmosphere in one generation. If it did, life probably would have extincted all of it. We probably wouldn't have had anything. Or if oxygen, there was a time before oxygen, and if oxygen just suddenly happened, I think it would have killed most of it, But anyway, so none of this was sudden, JimBob. He says, suddenly something couldn't breathe, so it crawled out of the water and developed lungs. But
it's not a theory, so
Yeah, not a theory. Yeah.
And the scientific method cannot explain the scientific method.
Right. Yeah. No, that's the other thing.
Hello, Claude. How you doing? And Jess and everybody. We're dual streaming from Mike's channel, just so you know.
Yeah, I got to look at my comments here. So, who do I have from yours? Okay, everybody in. Wait a minute. Why aren't they a different color in StreamYard? They aren't. So I can't tell who's on which channel. I see everybody.
I believe when it has the paperclip. See the paperclip on there?
Paperclip is your channel?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah, okay, pair. Okay. Yeah, I see that little guy. Interesting.
Or anyway, vice versa.
So, yeah. So then we got analysis, that's another part, and then conclusion, drawing conclusions, replication and reporting, observation, question, hypothesis, more hypothesis, to, retest our stuff and come up with a conclusion and then communicate it and then blah, blah, blah. And who gives a fuck? I mean, I study molecular biology every day. I don't give a shit about this stuff. I don't care. I just don't care. Sorry. Okay, what is a theory? A well-substantiated explanation of some aspect of the natural world that is based on a body of evidence that has stood up to repeated testing and validation. Theories are comprehensive, coherent, and consistent explanations that make sense of a wide range of observations and experimental results. Evidence-based, testable, explanatory power, all that garbage, blah, blah, blah. But the theory of evolution is a body of knowledge, and you can't just reduce it to it's just, mutations or mutations over time or any of that stuff. It's a huge body of knowledge. It involves all of biology, basically. So, I don't know. How to rule. I smirked at the title. How could I not come in? Yeah. JimBob is just such a dummy. It's just
like I say, what do you say? No, evolution is not a scientific theory. Well, yes, it is. No, it's not.
No.
Debate me.
My dad can beat your dad.
Yeah. What am I supposed to debate? You're saying a theory is not a theory. Debate me.
My dad's dick is bigger than your dad's dick. It's like, how are we gonna solve that one?
Yeah, and what did he say? Science is the lowest form of knowledge.
Oh my God. Yeah, his transcendental stuff is the highest form of knowledge.
Yeah, all the stuff that you can just make up and philosophize about all day long. That's your bulk of your knowledge. Science is just down here. Science just looks at things and explains them, and it's like, aha, see, there's the part. Yeah, it explains things.
Yeah. And so science is kind of like, it isn't separate from other forms of knowing. It's an extension of our average common sense everyday knowing that from the time we are babies, or as I put it, a zygote, we get all of this knowledge about how the world works. And that's basically the world carving us with its structure. It carves its structure into our knowledge base. And by the time we're walking around thinking, oh, do I believe in evolution? Do I have a worldview? Do I believe in God? We have done a great deal of development. We have an entire epistemology that we can stand on that works in an everyday sense. And I call that R1, that common sense stuff, that when you get out of bed, you know the floor is going to hold you up. You know how to put your pants on,
And it's not a good argument. It's not a good argument because the majority of religious people accept well-established science, every religion. So it's always this little minority, because they're the creationists in some other religions too, but it's a minority, and they try to set it up that it's a Christianity versus science thing. And as we point out, you can be a Christian and you can be a scientist, and you can be a Christian and you can accept science, and you can believe in a lot of things, Bigfoot, of course, and you can still do good science. But that doesn't mean because you did good science, let's say you invented something, great invention, right? This person's a great inventor. That doesn't mean because he believes in Bigfoot that it necessarily proves Bigfoot is real. It proves that his invention was a great invention. That separation is what the creationists like to use or misuse to set up all these false arguments.
Yeah, they like
JimBob's great at it. Yeah,
stuffing it with straw is what they like to do. They like to stuff it with straw.
Well, and again, you want to throw, here's some evolution evidence, JimBob. Biogeography. Well, no, JimBob rejects biogeography. So, once again, okay.
Yeah.
I guess we're done, right? End of debate, No, there's no such thing. Okay.
He's so smart. He's got 460 people watching him right now that all think he's so smart. Oh, he's just so smart. They mistake smugness for smart. That's why what do you think? About 90% of them are idiots that are just going along with this
when you
bullshit.
Start denying gravity, you deny the moon landings, you deny the space station is even there. I mean, that you can see, right? They want observable, right? Well, you can see it with your naked eye. Well, that's just something else. Okay, well, get better camera or a telescope and then take a look at it. Oh, well, that's just a projection or something. And it just goes on and on. And
yeah.
And you rub their nose in it, right? And they just say, oh, it's something else that's fake or something. It doesn't matter what it is. They just want to say no and just argue it and then say, see, all the scientists are dummies because they can't answer my question. And it's like, there's nothing to argue when you're just saying it didn't happen. There were no moon landings. Well, there's all this evidence, and we have all these people that say I was there, and and the I think it was the Japanese orbiter went around the moon and photographed it, and you can see the footprints and the wheel tracks from the thing, and the stuff still there. You can see it there. You know what I mean? They photographed the whole freaking moon.
Well, no. Neil deGrasse.
Well, what do you want?
They asked Neil deGrasse Tyson about that, and he went on and he says, "Okay, how would they fake this? There were leading up to the moon landing, there were 480,000 people involved in that landing, right? And all of them were documenting the hell out of every step of the way." And they would have to do all of that. And then you would have to get all of them to shut up, even on their deathbeds, right? They'd have to follow them throughout their life and get them to shut up and not tell the truth that they faked it. Or they would have to come up with some complicated computer system that simulated it for everybody that was looking at a computer. I think they had computer monitors, but I'm not even sure of that. Basically, they had a bunch of switchboards, right? So anyway, Neil deGrasse Tyson says, it would be a lot easier to go to the moon than it would be to fake it. A lot easier. Yeah. You may as well just go there, right? Just go there. So we got Iran Man. Who's Iran Man? Do we know who Iran Man is? No, Iron Man. Maybe it's Iron Man. I'm sorry. I thought it was Iran Man. Yeah, well, so I put the link out there. We'll take a shot.
Hey, it's me, Midnight.
Oh, for God's sake. Don't do that to me.
Sorry. It's been a while, so you don't know how my name changed.
Yeah, you're lucky you got in at all. So you've changed your name or what?
Yeah, I'm going for a new, better model. Better brand.
Okay. Anyway, how you doing?
I'm doing well. I haven't been watching long, but obviously JimBob is an idiot. We all know this. We all, it was written in the stars. Our Lord and Savior Richard Dawkins knows about. Well, actually, I don't know if he knows about it, but he is our priest after all. Actually, I don't even think he's relevant anymore. Has he even written a book? Has he even written any new books lately? What the hell is he doing these days?
I think he wrote a new book, but he is just not relevant. He did do some good work in biology, and we need to respect him for that. But other than that, as far as a person, he's kind of a jerk, and he's got a lot of ideas that have gotten a lot of pushback over the years. So,
yep.
It's just like, okay, he's not relevant. You're right. Okay. Joe, hey.
Hello, gentlemen. How are things going?
Yeah, going okay.
Hey, I wanted to make a couple of comments about our friend JimBob, and then I think almost done. I think I'm almost done on the topic of him. Because I think the real question that I had always asked is, was he authentic in his own mind, in his own beliefs? And I have come to a real conclusion that this entire thing that he's running is a show. Like the guy has always been a performer his whole life. He's an actor. You see him perform different characters on his channel. And there's a couple things I've seen as of late that have really shown me how he operates. I made a few comments on one of his videos, and anyone that was stinging all of a sudden evaporated. And so he commented that, well, that's just YouTube doing it. And
it
happened 4 or 5 times in a row. So he was in a chat, and the vilification of people that disagree, the way he calls them pig snakes. He was telling me, here's my final measure of a man. He was telling me or others that he wanted to physically assault me, that he'd pay real money to have a physical fight with me. And I think the name Old Joe has kind of deceived him a little. So on another channel, I said, all right, then, Mr. JimBob, let's do this. There's an organization quite close to me that does celebrity or online boxing matches. Let's you and I make this happen for real. We'll put the dono chats, we'll live stream it. We'll put the dono chats out there. And there was silence.
I'd watch that pay-per-view.
Oh, well, everybody would. And there was dead silence, nothing. And I think that tells you a lot about a person, then he was in his channel the next day saying that he wanted to hunt me down in the wilderness, but you could hear his voice shaking, right? So my opinion is that even though some of the beliefs around God, I may not, like, as Dave knows, and I'll just give your audience a quick recap. I was a fan of JimBob's, and I know that you guys had disagreed. And I watched you and Dave come into his channel and start to talk about some of the things you believed. And I watched the chatters in the channel say, these guys are liars. And my experience was that I hadn't ever seen you lie, you or Dave. So I mentioned that in the channel, in the chat. I said, in my experience, these guys are not liars. And the response that I got, the immediate backlash, was stunning. And I think that fear, that mass fear, is almost cultish. It interferes with our search for knowledge. So I almost think it's time to let the guy go. Like you say, I don't really think he's relevant in the end.
Yeah. I guess the reason that I keep coming back to him is because he illustrates a lot of arguments that are coming from people that are anti or young Earth creationists or anti-evolution, anti-science. People that presuppers, basically presupposition. I'm not sure where you are on that, but this whole presuppositional argument. So he illustrates those points so plainly and so idiotically, frankly. But he makes them clear, and I like to push back on those points. I don't care about JimBob.
And I think that's a great way handle it. The arguments themselves, like I'm not criticizing you're covering his arguments, because I think that's fabulous to look at those in a critical thinking fashion. I'm saying the man himself, the character that is JimBob, isn't real. This is the way to approach these discussions. Yes, let's look at these arguments and let's look at how he uses language to deceive, but let's also always know that this isn't authentic, right? This is a grift on his part. And that's the way I would come at it for a real review of his material. What is he doing here? He's reaching out and providing very clear, very simple answers to people who may not have a lot of direction, or people who may need those kind of answers, who may find solace in not necessarily delving into deep to some of these bigger issues.
But there's
a big rhetoric.
Yeah, and there's a big, like I say, the photo I have up, I looked up some of these Japanese orbiters. There's the lander with a shadow. It's still sitting there.
Yeah.
What?
But I mean,
what more do you want? And like I say, the other ones show you can still see the
if the Chinese or the Russians, if the Chinese or the Russians could have proved that we didn't land on the moon, they would have been all over that shit. I mean, that would have been great.
But anyway, literally, if you I don't know if you can actually do this, but if you had a strong enough telescope, you could see this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Theoretically, if not possibly.
Be pretty strong.
Well, and to run that kind of a grift, like to run a con, I've been involved in a few even small scale bureaucracies, and keeping a lie, and I've watched people try and do it. I've watched managers try and make decisions and then lie about them in public. And you can get away with it for a short amount of time, but it always leaks out in the end. Like people use the Manhattan Project. Well, look how they kept that secret. Yeah, but not for too long, right?
It got out. Yeah.
It eventually
Yeah.
gets out. You have a limited shelf life on these long conspiratorial lies, and then somebody is going to say something. So to say the moon landing there have been this many people involved in this conspiracy, it doesn't hold water.
Yeah.
No.
Oh, another big part of JimBob's channel is the hate rhetoric and the making fun of people. There's a whole class of people in all of our lives, in my life, basically friends and some family members who are miserable in their lives and kind of bored, and they're looking around for something to hate on, and they want to, and then JimBob provides this just perfect vessel for hating on people and making fun of people. I mean,
Yeah.
God, what did we do before the internet? We had to go to bars and risk being beat up if we wanted to make fun out of people. Now we can just do it all the time, right?
Well, it was funny, just a little anecdote from the other night in the other chat where JimBob was threatening to beat me up, and he had a few flying monkeys in chat, as he always does, and they were all jumping on me. And the minute I accepted his challenge, and that's an open invitation, by the way, it's still open. But the minute I accepted his challenge to watch the flying monkeys react to that, as they watch JimBob slink away and evaporate, it's like you say, there's a certain type of individual that enjoys seeing that individual, that picking on people and bullying. And it really is a shame, because that's what's being sold on his channel in the end. That's what he's selling people.
Yep. Yeah, that's a real. I don't understand how he marries that to his Orthodox religion, because that basically Eastern Orthodox Christianity, I think, is pretty much against all that kind of crap, or would be.
Well, was it your grandfather or your dad Orthodox?
My grandfather. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he was a really moral man. I mean, he was, he wouldn't have done shit like this or gone and made fun of somebody. He was a tough old son of a bitch. He was 5'8", but he looked like he could uproot an oak tree. But I remember him from when I was a little kid. He used to recite the Bible and stuff all the time. But I don't know.
And you were saying you found that creepy when he did that, eh?
No, I was fascinated with it because he would hold his hand on this crumbling Bible that was obviously like 100 years old. That had all the pages. Were out of the binding. They were just very much perfectly aligned. And he would hold his hand on that Bible and he'd recite over, and I'd be listening to him. He'd be reciting it in Serbian, so. And it was, I was amazed by it. I found other parts of him pretty creepy. He would hum all the time, go, he was like 80 years old, and I was like a little kid, and I was like, he had a rocking chair and he wore out the linoleum with his slippers underneath where he would rock every day, reciting the Bible and then, doing this moaning thing. And I'm like, oh, what the fuck? Yeah,
but it sounds to me like he legitimately believed in his faith. Yeah. So if it was me, it would be those type of people, in my opinion, that would be the most offended, or should be the most offended, by the garbage that JimBob is pulling off on his channel.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. How does he marry this to his Orthodox religion and his, all the rituals that he goes to? I don't know how he does that. I guess the idea is that you're fighting for Christianity or something, or you're fighting the good fight, so you can do anything you want to your enemies because God is on your side. Is that what it is?
This is a question we were exploring on another channel this morning. Is the mind of a cult leader, and how they may in fact convince themselves that they're on this mission when really they're motivated by something far more basic. Like, if you notice JimBob, he was an atheist, then he was a New World spiritualist, then he was a this and a that, and he's always been an actor. Yeah. And I'm wondering if first of all, he's clearly intelligent. Let's not take that away from him. But he also recycles a lot of the material he uses, and probably doesn't fully understand it. And I think it may be meeting a personal need he has to belong. to find meaning for himself individually, because you notice any one of his followers, for example, me, that disagree with him, he cuts them loose right away.
Yeah. Well, he is Tucker Carlson. He even has the same expressions, and my son said he's a lot smarter than he looks on screen, right? Because he's playing a game. He's running a scam, that sort of thing. Tucker Carlson. And JimBob, I think, watched Tucker Carlson for a long time and got all his expressions from him. His expression, like, the dumb look he gets when an atheist is trying to explain evolution to him or something. I don't know. So
well, and here's something. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry, Answers. I cut you off.
No, go. No, I lost it. You go.
Here's something that I had a discussion with an acting coach that I knew, and you guys can disagree with this. I can't testify to this. I don't know if it's true, but he said professional actors, entertainers, are almost always in some form of character, even in their own personal lives. It's very tough. Oh, yeah. It becomes a way of living, and it's very tough to step out. Every once in a while, like I swear I look into JimBob's eyes and there's nothing behind him. Hey, like there's every once in a while there's you see a little flash of who he really is. And I think this is why I bother him so much, because I don't talk in his philosophical terms. I talk about his beliefs, and he becomes really upset when I do that. So I'm wondering if this whole thing is just a very sophisticated coping mechanism, like some of these other cult leaders that we see. There can be people that are really good at it,
Yeah. Well, he might be making a living on this too. He gets a tremendous amount of super chats and stuff like that. And if I were making a living on a scam, it would be really difficult for me to stop doing that scam. If it was my job, right? It's my job to be a scam.
Donnie Deals.
Donnie Deals.
Do you ever read anything about the old faith healers in the old days that would go around in like the old Western times, and they would recruit followers, and I've read some fascinating accounts of how these scams would work, because some of the the mark in the crowd that would be the guy that was pretending he was crippled and then would be healed every night. Some of them say they never actually discussed the grift with the faith healer. It was almost arrived at through a sort of a tacit understanding, because they all knew it was a grift, but even in private, they never really admitted it to themselves. I'm wondering if that's a little bit of what's going on.
Yeah. I don't know. And then that other thing about, the haters, the people that, are bored and are miserable in their lives, and they just want to find something to be upset about. Like you'll find, like, if you pull into a gas station and the gas station's crowded, you'll find some guy that's just sitting there steaming because you get out of your car and walk in to pay, and he can't wait to come in and confront you. I've seen that happen, where they're just pissed off all the time, pissed off. And it's like, that is so much the opposite of spirituality that I can't believe that they don't see this, that they don't, I don't know. I mean,
Sam Harris is the one that said, look at the extremists if you want to understand a religion.
Yeah.
They're digging up all the uglies for you.
That's right. Sorry, I'll confess to what you mentioned, their answers in atheism. I have had times where if I drive up to a drive-through and it seems to me like a crowd of cars arrive just before me, the drive-through had nobody there, but all of a sudden there's 10 cars that pull in. I will confess to being that guy that's pissed off at those people, every 10 of them, even though I don't know them.
You manifested it. You manifested it, Joe.
That's right. I did.
You wanted to be pissed off, so those cars manifested, because that's the reality you wanted.
That's right. That gave me an identity, the angry guy.
I will allow myself to. I allow myself to do it when I'm following an old person driving. I hate old people who drive. I'm
Knuckle
like,
rider.
You belong in the nursing home, you asshole. And but I'm not putting that on him, right? And then I drive by him, and they're like 20 years younger than me.
My grandfather drove 25 miles an hour no matter where he was going.
Oh, my God, I hate that.
He always had his arm out the window going, go around. because I'm not speeding up.
Yeah.
Did you ever hear the Seinfeld joke about the old drivers? He says they'll pull out in front of you at the last second, but then when they do get out in front of you, they'll drive so slow. Why were they? They're like, they're old. I've waited a long time. You can wait behind me, type of thing.
Yeah.
Hey, gentlemen,
It's like
thanks for having me up, man.
All right, Joe.
Okay. Thank you. Anyway, yeah, but I allow myself that. But as far as like people cutting you off in traffic, I've been working on this for 20 years. When a person cuts me off in traffic and does something, that seems rude, I will think, oh my God, they might have some place like their kid might be in the hospital. Their kid might be sitting on the seat next to them, rushing them to emergency. And I just reframe what I think of them, and my anger just completely dissipates. It's like, I'm not going to spend the next 20 miles bitching in my head about this person that cut me off in traffic, right? I can imagine anything I want about him in a positive way and let it go. And that's really important, because every time you get pissed off like that, it takes about 6 hours off your life. The amount of cortisone that ends up in your bloodstream, it just doesn't pay, to be pissed off at people. So when you run into people, you got to kind of like give them, I don't know if it's called charity or what it is, but it's basically you can come up with a story that will hold them harmless. And then all of a sudden you don't care anymore, because when you get angry, anger is an emotion that when it happens after an event only lasts for about 5 minutes. And then all of those hormones drain out of your bloodstream and you idle down. The only way to keep angry is to think about it and to keep cogitating and going over and over it. And that's not good for you. And it isn't a good way to live. So,
these people keep making these videos, pissing me off.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, well, I allow myself that because this keeps me engaged, right? Keeps me intellectually engaged. So I'll listen to them, and I make jokes about, how much I hate it and all that stuff. But no, I enjoy doing this. This is fun stuff.
And like Joe was saying, JimBob's full of crap. He doesn't believe any of that stuff. It's all a show. And you notice all the things that he talks about are the topics that draw the creationist crowds and the conspiracy crowds and everything. He talks about the moon landings and evolution and all those bumper stickers, whatever you want to call them. And then they all go, oh yeah.
It's almost like if you wrote a book on how to grift current, religious people, JimBob would be the author, or at least, he could write the book on it.
You put in the title that, evolution is false, lies from the devil and stuff like that, and you have a religious page, you're going to get all kind of views.
Yeah. That's too bad.
It's amazing.
And it's people that, like I said, are miserable in their lives and they're not self-aware enough to know that when you're miserable in your life, it is 99 times out of 100, it's because of you. Because you have not accepted some person, place, or thing that,
I thought atheists were the miserable ones.
Yeah, I don't think so. I don't know. I'm not very miserable anymore.
I heard the one guy say we're miserable, and I was like,
yeah,
anybody can be, emotional. That's all these arguments. I'm finding that their arguments more and more, Mike, are just not holding any water, because every time they say, well, an atheist can be mean. Well, so can a Christian. I'm not finding any superiority at all, because as soon as you point out a bad Christian, well, they're not a real Christian. Well, then they weren't a real atheist, right? So it's not getting anywhere, Yeah.
Yep. Oh, let's see. I've got.
And JimBob's an idiot. He's a grifter. He's a coward. Um, what else? Well, yeah, he's sexist. He's a bigot.
Yeah, he's not very self-aware.
Yeah, and he's feeding on all that. And then, I don't know what his deal is with his shirt buttoned all the way up thing. I don't know. It really bugs me.
He wears kind of Hawaiian weird shirts too,
they look like pajama shirts.
Yeah, pajama.
And even his polo, he buttons it all the way up. It's really odd. It's like
his beard makes him look like a dick. And he's got that little curl in front of his, he's always got that little curl.
Yeah, I know. He's got a lot of dippity-doo and curling going on in his hair there.
Lots of curling going on. So yeah, you see that little curl right there? Yeah, that's significant. Hanging in front of his forehead. And then he's going on. He's going
Erica.
After her.
Yeah. Of course he's going after Erica. Oh, this woman. Can you imagine this woman talking to you, this and that? Yeah. Talking about her voice. And I'm like, really, JimBob, have you heard your own voice? You talk through your nose, dude.
Yeah.
You're one note off of Ben Shapiro, and he's talking about somebody else's voice, and it's like, really?
Yeah. What a man. Yeah. You know why, you asshole? Because some people don't want to go on Discord and be on your show. So, call in to Discord and sit there and look at a Discord screen and then have to look over at the YouTube screen and then not have any idea who the hell is talking on Discord because everybody's all talking at once. And
he has no shoulders.
He doesn't.
He's got absolutely no shoulders.
Yeah, they really
that big old head sitting on nothing. It's like he's a little stick figure or something.
I don't know what that
That's right. I'm picking on you, JimBob, because you pick on other people.
Anyway, he's got an empty Discord.
Greasy hair.
Look at the look.
You don't have any audio, Mike.
What's that?
You don't have any audio.
I don't? Really? No shit. What happened? Oh no, not that again. Not that again. Oh, that happens. Is there a reason for that?
Switch to your microphone or something. Or to your headphones or something.
Oh, you mean my hands? You mean my voice is bad?
No, you're okay. Can't hear the video.
Yeah, I know. I'm wondering what happened to the video. Why it's so bad. Okay, we got that turned up. Gotta go down here and find Opera. Opera's on. Opera's on. Opera's on. I always check with Scott before I. How about now? No?
Nope.
Can't hear it at all. Huh. Wow. Okay. Yeah. Every other time I boot my Mac, Opera Chrome never works anymore. And Opera will work maybe 5 times out of 6. That's about it. So we can't really listen to it. So we get rid of that shit. So I've got a lot of JimBob material stored up. I don't know. A whole bunch of JimBob.
Yeah, well, and Erica was talking about carbon dating, and he's like, "Oh, well, carbon dating doesn't work." And it's like, "Oops."
Oh yeah,
that's just his answer to everything. Well, nope, that's not real. That doesn't work. That's not true. It's not a scientific theory. Well, okay, you win, I guess. That's my response to the creationist is always the same thing. It's like, I really don't care what you say because biology is being taught in the schools, not your stuff. So, you go on and on and on and on, but when you go to school, you're learning biology. You're not learning Magic Zoo Boat. Sorry to disappoint you.
I've been listening to some younger. I was listening this morning to a young Earth creationist saying, they take rock, and we know when the rock was formed. It just came out of a volcano, and we take it to the lab and radiocarbon date it or come up with radiometric dating, and it turns out to be millions and millions of years old. And I don't know what the hell, but they just state this just out of the blue.
That's
if you look at it,
always from the Steve Austin, almost always.
Yeah. And I think was it Steve Austin or one of them actually admitted in this unbelievable, he did a paper, and the paper was like 70 some pages long. And in the middle of that paper somewhere, and I've been trying to find that again, he said that he purposefully lied to the people who were doing the radiometric dating.
Yeah, he has to. Yeah.
The origin of the rocks. And when you lie to them, they will use different procedures, right?
Yes.
So if you tell them that you think it's, roughly 20 million years old, they're going to use certain procedures. If you tell them you think it's 1,000 years old, they're going to use different procedures. And they lie to them, and then they come up with these, with all kinds of errors, because the error margins for real young things are just incredibly wide, right? So it's very, very difficult to apply a dating method that works on 1 billion years to a sample that's 5 years old. It just doesn't work. You got to come up with all kinds of problems. But
that's Steve Austin's specialty. And if you look, if they cite a source or anything down the bottom, I'm almost guarantee you it'll be from Steve Austin, because that is exactly what he does. He gets crazy readings and then he says, see, it doesn't work.
What is apotheosis? I don't know what apotheosis is. Do you know what apotheosis is? That we should really be given, shouldn't it? People don't typically come up with a hypothesis for things that we can already prove. I'm not sure what he's saying exactly.
Well, that's JimBob saying he wants a hypothesis for evolution, and that's and he wants to run it through the scientific method, and that's what we were trying to tell him. It's like, I don't have to do any of that. It's already a scientific theory. That's the end product of already going through the scientific method. But he just says, no, it hasn't. Let's start from square one. And it's like,
right. Yeah, and explain it to him. There was a whole bunch of stuff that he did. Well, he brought up, I don't know, he's talking about liver evolution, lung evolution, and talking about it in some ridiculous manner, like all of a sudden these organs have to pop up and work all at once.
Yeah, that was the same thing. How did it survive without it before? And it's like,
yeah. What happened to Scott? I don't know.
He's got internet demons.
Does he? I thought he was going to take a phone call.
Yeah, that's what he said earlier, was a phone call. Must be a long phone call.
His excuse.
He's tying up the line.
Really important phone call. Yep.
He's still got dial up, and he's tying up the line.
Yeah. Remember the old party line phones? Did you have those when you were young?
I didn't, but I knew people that had them.
Yeah. Oh my God. Me and my friends would sit and we're on the same party line, and we'd have fights with each other over some girl, and we'd be listening in, and you'd be really careful about how you hang up the phone, how you pick it up so that they don't hear you interrupt, and you could listen to each other talk, and it was just a zoo. I mean, it was very much like social media today, because we could spy on each other, and shit, which was pretty, man, it got dicey. It got incredible. And you heard some things sometimes you could not unhear from the adults.
Well, that's the thing, dude. You're going to argue against all kinds of things, including gravity, and then you're going to say, oh, yeah, the magic zoo boat's real because it's a miracle.
Yeah.
And it's like, again, okay, there's nothing to argue against when creationists, including JimBob, because he may as well be one.
Well, if they would admit that it's a miracle, but they don't want to do that, like standing for truth, they want to make it a scientific fact that you actually could build a boat, and you actually could create the diversity of life that we have today with what you could put on that boat. But if they would just say, oh, it was God made a miracle, it was just, this miracle boat that had all of life on earth, and he, released it, and it miraculously transported to Australia and all the places it needed to go. And it was a miracle. And I'd be okay with that. It's like, okay, if you believe that, that's good.
But JimBob doesn't have an answer. Yeah, he just says it's a miracle and he dodges it.
Yeah.
That's the answer.
Does he do that with the Zubo? He says it's a miracle.
Yep. It's a miracle, and that's the end of it. So he doesn't have to explain anything.
Yeah.
Because he knows it's nonsense.
Yeah. The atheists have to explain stuff. So
yeah, he's just poking holes in stuff. And again, it's, whatever, the climate and, the jab and all the things that he makes fun of are all the popular things to make fun of. So, of course, evolution is one. Moon landings is one.
Yep.
There you go. That's why he's got 400 people watching him, because he's got a handful of these and a handful of those and a handful of those that just want to talk about Matt Dillahunty's partner, because apparently they're awful jealous of Matt Dillahunty's partner's looks. Because
okay. Yeah.
Aiden's got it going on a little bit there. Got that little cute face going there, and it's just too much for them to bear. That they're thinking about it way too much.
finding a group or class of people to hate, which is raw racism and xenophobia, something that humans have done for ages, is kind of what they're. I mean, if they can pick on a new kind of thing to hate, right? And they don't have to admit that they hate other races. It's a win for them, right? Because then they can just let it all out. And the orange
it's so silly too.
President made it popular to say it out loud. Right?
Yeah. You got a happy couple. It's like, so many people are single that are looking for somebody, and then you have a happy couple and it's like, I'm going to be mad at them, It's like,
there's a whole lot of people today are deciding not to be in a relationship and be alone for their lives, and they're doing fine too. And that pisses the Christians off also. They hate those people.
Oh, and this whole thing about throw all the immigrants out, but we need all the white folks to have more babies. And it's like, could you be any more telling?
Yeah, exactly.
Vance and Elon and all the rest of them are all saying that. It's like, we need to get rid of all the brown folks. You white folks got to make more babies. And I'm like, gee whiz, man. But don't call him a Nazi. Don't call him a Nazi. You can't do that.
Yeah. So this is the transcendental argument. ChatGPT thought for an entire 22 seconds about it. Understanding philosophical nuances, examining the concept of transcendental argument for God. Okay, it's Van Til is the one I think that began all of this stuff, and I'm not probably in the 40s or 30s or something like that, 1930s. And then Bahnsen was the one that took it and kind of refined it. So Greg Bahnsen differentiates between vicious and virtuous circular. So when an atheist does a circular argument that basically, the universe just is, you have to live with it. We call that circular. It's a vicious circularity, but when they do it, it's virtuous circularity. In presuppositional apologetics, the necessity of epistemic circular arguments for the Christian worldview without considering them a logical fallacy. So let's say pulling together perspectives, understanding the approach, overview. Transcendental argument for God, tag, is most closely associated with tradition of presuppositional apologetics by Cornelius Van Til, later refined by Greg L. Bahnsen, Frame, and Butler. Well, there's no unanimous verdict on a single best version. Let's see. Many regard Greg Bahnsen's presentation as the best, right? The more robust and systematic. And here it is. So this is Bahnsen's argument. So what they're saying is, in essence, certain features of human experience, such as the laws of logic, uniformity of nature, objective morality, or reliability of our cognitive faculties, must have a ground or a basis. That's the first thing, right? Why? Why do they have to have a ground or a basis? Is what I want to ask them. Because for the average person, they don't sit around and try to think, oh, how do I ground this? What is my basis for this, right? And so they say the triune God of the Christian theism is a necessary precondition for these features. So they're claiming that their triune God is the only way you can get logic, laws of logic, uniformity of nature, morality, and reliability of our cognitive faculties. So they're saying that that is the only way. We would lack a foundation for intelligibility, reason, and moral norms. Therefore, the very possibility of knowledge and rational thought presupposes the existence of God. That's basically the argument in a nutshell. Now, it's pretty bad. I mean, if that's the best, this is the best argument they got, right? The most robust that I could come up with. So let's see. Okay, the best version. So what he starts out with, Dan Till's apologetic. Let's see. Okay, it goes on. It gives the sources, positive form of search. Okay, one of the more notorious critiques of tag is that it seems circular. Presuppositionalists acknowledge this. Oh, yeah, we are circular, but make a key distinction between vicious and virtuous. Sometimes you also see it referred to more neutrally as epistemic circularity. Okay, so what do we got here? Oh, it's Scott. Hey, Scott.
Hello, gentlemen. I'm just
we're reading the tag.
So what?
We're reading the tag argument.
Oh boy! So we're on virtuous, or should we call special pleading circularity?
Yeah. Well, no, we got
vicious.
When
it's my belief. It's vicious when it's your belief.
Yeah, if it's vicious, the conclusion is simply assumed without justification. Like, I'm right, you're not.
Yeah, and that's what they're doing, using the fallacy of incredulity. It can't be another way. How could it be any other way? Yeah.
Right. So I know my senses are trustworthy because my senses tell me so. I know the Bible is true because the Bible tells me so. Same fucking thing. It offers no further rationale. So virtuous is one is dealing with ultimate presuppositions or foundational commitments. All worldviews must at some point rely on our own starting point to justify themselves. Right. Naturalism relies on nature. What's the problem with that? The claim of presuppositionalists is that everyone faces a kind of inevitable circularity at the deepest level of the worldview. And we kind of know that, right? We know that, like I was talking on James's channel yesterday, and I said, we awaken the world, as cognizant beings, and we look around, and we may awaken as adults to studying philosophy and worldviews, and we look around, and there's a whole bunch of stuff that we already know, and we don't know how we got to know it. So it's a little bit circular. Okay, what makes it virtuous or acceptable is that the presupposition in question here, the existence of the Christian God, actually accounts for the condition of knowledge, logic, and morality consistently and non-arbitrarily.
No,
okay,
it doesn't naturally account. It doesn't actually account. It asserts an account.
Asserts, right.
Yeah, God did it.
So what makes it virtuous or acceptable is that the presupposition in question here, the existence of the space-time natural universe, actually accounts for the conditions of knowledge, logic, morality consistently and non-arbitrarily. Okay. Now, the problem we have with naturalism is this part where we have to account for these things about humans, right? So we have to kind of explain what are the conditions for knowledge, logic, and morality among human beings. And that is the naturalist agenda, basically, is to explain these things. And they explain them by just asserting them, by saying, oh, God did it that way. God made logic. He made circular circles instead of square circles. God just did it that way. And I'm saying that no, the universe we find ourselves just is that way. And there's absolutely no difference. And there's nothing any more circular about what I'm doing than what they're doing.
And once again, there's no difference if I grant you that God set up the universe as it is, and we all have to follow the laws of logic, the laws of physics, and all these things. Yeah. But what I'm going to object to is when you say that all of these laws can be suspended on a whim. That's the problem, because that's where I don't see the evidence. That's where you have to have just a belief. You don't have any evidence of this. What you have the evidence of is God or no God, we have to follow the laws of physics and laws of logic, explain things and all this stuff. And I don't see the difference if you have a God set it up that way or if a God didn't set it up that way, other than the supposed supernatural interventions that only happened a long time ago.
Yeah, I mean, it could be the titular unicorn. Why not that? Why couldn't you have made up a story, made up any kind of science fiction story you want? And that's the problem with what I call naive or seventh grade metaphysics, is that you basically make up a story. Like you can make up, oh, what if you're a brain in a vat and everything is being fed to you and there is no reality and there's some supercomputer out there and some evil scientist. That is like, I call that M1 or metaphysics 1. That's just making shit up. You can make up an infinite number of those stories to account for all of what we find epistemically.
And that wouldn't change anything either, because we still have to deal with it. If we're in a simulation, we have to deal with it. If it's a God, we have to deal with it. If none of those things are happening, we have to deal with it. I don't see anything changing what we have to deal with in reality. The main argument they'll throw at you is, well, you'll find out when you die. And I was like, well, I guess we will. So there you go. That's it.
So the Christian theism is internally coherent and externally explanatory power. I don't know why it's externally explanatory, that validates its fundamental presuppositions. So basically it's internally coherent. Well, any good story is internally coherent. When Stephen King starts writing a novel, he keeps track of a lot of facts and makes it internally coherent. Right. Who cares? It's a Stephen King novel. Do you believe in the clown? I don't know.
And when you've already read a Stephen King book and you write a sequel with his permission, obviously, et cetera, you write a sequel, you already know what was in his book when you write a sequel. So when you're writing a New Testament and they say, oh, look, these things match up with the Old Testament, that's because they already knew the Old Testament. Of course, they're going off of or repeating things that were in the Old Testament.
Obviously, the Stephen King ripoff is true because it all matches what Stephen King said, you know.
I just heard an apologist using that argument earlier in one of the videos I was looking at, is that how did people, so many years apart, tell the same stories? And it's like, well, the Jewish stories haven't gone anywhere. The Old Testament hasn't gone anywhere. So it's a terrible argument. Anyway, go ahead, Mike. It was bugging me, sorry.
Okay. Why presuppositionalists embrace virtuous circularity? Okay. Argue that the ultimate standard, be it logic, science, or even sense experience, must eventually appeal to that standard in its reasoning. That's kind of an assertion. They would say the real question is whether your ultimate presupposition, be it naturalism or the Christian God, makes sense of the world in a coherent, livable way. So there again is the project of naturalism, to talk about the things that we find in the world and make it sensible. Now, if you're an average atheist, you don't give a shit about any of this.
Yeah, why can't it be both? Why can't it be both? If a Christian can accept science and an atheist can accept science, then the last few words in there doesn't mean anything, because once again, I'm not seeing any difference. Okay, you believe God did it. Some physicist like Lawrence Krauss doesn't believe that. it still doesn't change anything, and it doesn't change the physics or anything else they discover, even if you attribute it to God. So again, if I'm going to grant you the God, there's no difference there. It's not stating that there's any difference if you believe in God or not as to what things are going to actually be when you do meaningful science. The word's right there.
By virtuous circle, they mean that while it's an appeal to one's ultimate presupposition, it is not arbitrary. Rather, it is vindicated because it alone makes possible meaningful discourse, science, morality, and so forth. Okay, so here's what they're asserting. And this is a really important part, that they have to prove that their idea alone, none other, can explain things, right? And the way they do that is they take the atheists and they put them on the spot, and they'll pick some 20-year-old just got out of high school, just took his first philosophy.
Explain where the universe came from.
Right. Yeah, come on.
20 seconds. Hurry up.
Right? Yep. And that's the whole deal, is to try to make people look bad by over talking them and talking about these deep transcendental principles and all this stuff. Let's see. Most presuppositionalists consider Greg Bahnsen's version of TAG to be the most developed and user-friendly. They refer to the positive form of circularity. Let's see. Some self-referencing is inevitable. And okay, so then I ask them to give me the entire Bahnsen argument. And it goes ahead and starts. So these are the or the transcendental things that Bahnsen wants to talk about: the laws of logic, the uniformity of nature, objective morality, and reliability of our cognitive faculties. So objective morality, is it an objective fact that shit stinks? Is that an objective fact?
I don't know, because other animals use it for marking and everything. So I don't know.
Yeah, but not, we're just talking about humans. Are there any humans that think that shit smells really great?
Right. Yeah.
I know cats don't even like their own litter box.
I know liver and onions brings up bad memories for me. So.
Oh yeah. But I mean,
I smell it and I'm like, oh no, I'm going to be grounded because I'm not going to eat it.
Well, that's the weird thing is whenever my mom would cook liver and onions, I loved the smell.
Oh
it
yeah,
made me hungry, and then I would try to eat it, and it was
I love
horrible.
Well, the thing was, my father enjoyed it, okay, and instead of enjoying his feast, he had to ruin the buzz by trying to make us kids like it that didn't like it. Although my brother grew up to like it later in life. I don't understand. But
okay, there's a truth
now with me,
liver.
if I'm having something and my boys are kind of like, it's like, well, you don't have to have it. I will have it, and you can have this, right? Or whatever, the rest of the meal. And it's perfectly fine. Yeah, my grandfather, pig's feet, chicken feet,
Man.
duck blood soup, all those kind of things. And hey,
cheese.
You didn't have to eat it, right? But you don't ruin the man's feast, right? Yeah, people like those things, but when you don't buzzkill your own feast by trying to make somebody eat it, especially a kid who's going to look at it kind of funny, right? And then, you ruined your own meal, right? Just say, hey, more for me, and you take that and you let them eat the rest.
I got to order myself 20 pounds of pig's feet again. God, I miss them. Anyway, so there's a fact about liver.
And tongue.
I went and bought like 2 pounds of liver.
Yeah.
Oh,
open Grandma and Grandpa's refrigerator, and it'd be this big tongue looking at you.
Yeah, I drew the line at tongue. It's like Grandpa and Grandma like head cheese and tongue and all that crap. Not me.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I bought this like a couple pounds of liver, and I brought him home for my St. Bernard, and I thought, oh God, he's going to love this because it's so chock full of iron and protein. And I give him a piece of liver, and he grabbed it in his mouth and he spit it out and threw it on the ground, and he looked at me like, what did you do to me? He hated it, and he ran off. He was just like, no, I ain't eating that shit.
You gotta be a fan of organ meat, or you're not. And I'm just not.
What you got to do is you got to salt the shit out of it and put a lot of onions so that you don't really know that you're eating liver, and then it's wonderful. I like it. So, you also have to fry the shit out of it too, so it doesn't seem like an organ.
There's so many things to eat. You don't have to eat and like everything. And I enjoy a lot of things. I'm not that picky, right? I'll eat a lot of things, so I don't think I should get flagged for the few things I don't like, you know?
Yeah, I was going through a keto phase a few years back, and somebody had suggested that organ meat was just really great for you, and because of social bias or whatever, it was a lot of organ meats were looked down upon. So I went through and tried various ones, and although some I enjoyed, liver I would have to cover up with spicy, oniony kind of stuff, but it was just such a pain to get it and prepare it that I kind of just quit seeking the organ meat.
Yeah, I might go get some liver and have some liver and onions because I kind of like it. I really like pig's feet. You put hot pepper and garlic on that, and salt the hell out of it, and boil it up, and
still tastes like liver.
You suck knuckle. No, I'm talking about pig's feet. Pig's feet are just
pig's feet.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of those things they've got a lot of flavor from the bone and cartilage and all that. And I can understand, different things. So
it's not big feet, nerdy. It's pig's feet. Anyway. Really great. Sucking knuckles, man. We loved it. Well, my father taught us to do that when we were so little. We didn't know any better. And then we just grew up thinking it was okay. It's like, Jesus Christ.
My grandma, bless her heart, they didn't have a lot of money or anything, but she knew the boys were coming. That's my brother and I. There would be pop and chips and, some kind of ice cream bars in the freezer or something, you know what I mean? So yeah, it would be, oh yeah, there's, help yourself. There's a pop in the fridge there or whatever, And yeah, you open it up and you never know what it was going to be, feet or a tongue or some kind of things in there.
Oh, my grandma had some things that it's horrible. Who's Stephen Mudd? Stephen Mudd? Trying to connect?
Stepping in mud?
I'm not aware of such a person. Maybe they're from the past and I've just forgotten them.
Stephen Mudd. Trying to connect, but not connecting, not working. So something's wrong. Anyway,
if you enjoy liver and onions, enjoy your liver and onions, but don't ruin the buzz of your meal by trying to make somebody eat it that doesn't like it and is not going to enjoy it. Enjoy your own feast, enjoy it. Go ahead.
But to be less gross, the reason that I brought up feces smelling to almost every human being alive, right?
Objective, right?
Is that is as close to an objective fact as you can get, right? I mean, and the reason it is close to an objective moral for human beings to find stinky things, bad, is because of the way we are wired. And statistically, 99.999% of us do not want to murder. We love children. We care about, other human beings. We're not inclined to violence unless we absolutely have to. We don't like it. All of that. We're wired that way, and that makes it as objective a fact as you can get. And it's because it is statistically, but then when you come to a subject like abortion, now then all of a sudden it's not as clear cut because you're not really wired to handle that kind of a thing, right? So it's pretty obvious that every moral, every thing that you can come up with in moral arguments has a gradient of objectivity to it, whether or not it's going to be something that is accepted across every culture. Don't kill your children is pretty much accepted, right? And then they'll come up with exceptions, right? Oh, so and so in Texas murder kids. It's like it's just a ridiculous concept. Humans, I mean, what would morality be if there were no human beings anywhere? No mammals, no human being, no animals at all, just plants. What would morality be? How would it be objective or real in the universe if there were just plants, just trees?
Well, ultimately, if a God makes the rules, it's subjective by definition. So I've never liked the argument that things are objective, because according to who? Well, according to my book. Well, once again, different gods told their books different things. So you have different moralities.
Yeah. Okay, laws of logic. Now, a lot of atheists really trip up on this because they'll say, oh, logic is something that human beings created. You know, this nominalism bullshit, which I rail against. The laws of logic fall out of space, time, and particles. If you have, you know, and we can call them particles. They're like quantum fields, but we'll call them particles because to us, things appear solid. Space, time, and objects. Logic falls out of that, basically, because you can have object A at position XYZ, or you can have object B. Okay, you can't have both. And then in some cases, if you draw a circle around things, you can have A and B inside of that circle, right? And now I've created a circle, which is a little chunk of space-time that I've delineated. And I mean, we get really confused when we start talking about, it's in our mind, right? It's something that we think about. We become very confused. And what you need to do is leave the whole mind thing behind. You need to bracket human existence and human minds and think about what is the case if we just have a space-time, four-dimensional universe with particles in it. Okay. The case is definitely going to be that some of those particles are further apart than others. Some are right next to each other. Nothing can be on top of itself or top of something else, right? Space, you know, particles take up space. They're extended in space. Logic falls out of that very simply. What do you think of that, you two?
Well, you're saying that these things are there even if there's no minds to comprehend it.
Right. Yeah. It's obvious that two particles can't occupy the same position without interacting and becoming something else. You know, that's like my favorite counter apologist, Peter Atkins, says that the simplest molecule has information. So you can have information without any minds. Yep. Yeah, information is just structure. So if you look at, you know, particles in space-time, there's always structure to it. You know, there's always a distance between them. We call it a metric, right? And if you live in that kind of a universe, and that we all do necessarily, then that is as close to a God as I can get. I mean, that is the presupposition that covers everything else.
Unless you're Wayne or Castrop or somebody like that, where everything is connected, then your toaster and your rocks out in space are all connected.
Yeah, they make this mistake of they can't objectively stand apart from what they are as human minds, and that's what we're doing.
Yeah, which totally takes away that before we existed, then nothing could have existed because there wasn't any minds, which doesn't logically follow at all.
If a tree falls in a forest and there's nobody around to hear it,
Bigfoot did it.
Yeah, that sort of thing. And then the uniformity of nature, that's another just is, you know, things like if you look at block time, you know, the four-dimensional, that the entire universe, everything that's going to happen or has happened is all, you know, just rigidly defined as a crystal in four-dimensional space-time, right? There's a regularity to how things unfold that we like to think that one thing causes another, but causality is more that there's a juxtaposition of things. One billiard ball hits the other. It's because that billiard ball is trying to take up the same space as the other one, that sort of thing. And there's a regularity to this logical space-time universe that is also something that we just presuppose. It just is. It is necessarily the way the universe has to be in order for there to be us sitting here talking about it. So that's the uniformity of nature is very, and there's no guarantee that 3 minutes from now, the entire thing isn't going to dissolve. We're all going to disappear. We don't need a guarantee. It's just that it seems to be pretty regular, has been regular for all of my life. I don't know about you guys. But, have you ever jumped out of a tree and not fell down?
I don't know. I guess JimBob has because there's no gravity.
I guess, yeah. Right. Yeah, that's right.
I just deny gravity as I'm laying here with a broken arm. There's no gravity.
An angel slammed you to the ground. It wasn't gravity.
Yeah. And then the reliability of our cognitive faculties. Basically, we evolved in this universe to cognitively interact with this universe. And this universe makes sense to us. It's intelligible because we are a part of it. We were carved to understand the universe. If our minds are suppose a human developed in an entirely alien, weird universe where everything was upside down and all around and weird shit happened, we would basically acquire cognitive abilities within those new rules because that's what our mind does. That's how minds work. That's how neurons work. That's how they wire up. They become imprinted from the regularity of whatever environment you're in. And if we were in a different environment,
I was just thinking the same thing. We're interconnected, Mike. We have manifested our neurons across the Bernardo Kastrup rocks.
Oh yeah.
Because I was thinking the same thing. Yeah, if it is another unit, because they were talking about this, a lot of apologists talk about this. If it was another universe and things were different, we wouldn't exist as we are there. And it's like, yeah, but there's no reason we couldn't exist differently there. You're just leaving out the possibility that, yes, it might not be exactly like we are. Like you said, everything could be upside down, but there could still be beings there.
Maybe Bigfoot
think about
is
things.
A visitor from another universe, and he exists differently than us.
He is. He's interdimensional shapeshifter. So
is Greg S. a flat earther or what? L. Trucker is just throwing up his hands. It's like, okay, you win. So, Greg, what has Greg S. been saying? Tilt that was never okay. My God, is Greg S.
I wasn't watching. I've been reading what you got on the screen and trying to again see. I don't see how adding a God to it helps it at all.
Greg S. Tilt that.
It's just saying, well, we don't know where the universe came from or whatever, so it's God. That's all it is.
What do we got here? I'd settle for just having anything that would substantiate your position. Why would we eliminate only potential possible candidate explanation? I'm not sure what the hell they're talking about. I would have to
go for a while. It's been going for a while.
The only potential candidate. I don't know what he's talking about. In other words, he's of the opinion that God is the only potential candidate, but God's just a word we people made up for something that creates or someone that creates. There's not been any independent evidence of it existing. There's just been lots of assertions by people who just love the idea of God over the years, or a God, or a pantheon of gods. There's just always been people that but we know that because of different cognitive biases and psychological tendencies of human beings. Oh, it's explained by that, not by I'm just going to presuppose there's a God and that's the solution.
Yeah. And, all it is saying, oh, there are things like us that use tools, and like the way we think is very much interactive with with the world around us, using tools and developing tools and creating things, making dinner, all that stuff. It's just saying that, oh, there's a big human out there that accounts for all this. That solves the whole problem. Now we can go home. That's why it's so goddamn stupid. It's just so goddamn stupid.
I've asked before, if you have aliens on the other end of the universe and they develop a math system that's based on a different system than we use, they can still use their system to figure things out. So when they're using the argument that the math we use is also something from God or something, it's like there are different systems of math we have used in different cultures here. So there's no reason a different system of math couldn't be used somewhere else, but you can still explain things with it. So the Christians just want to own. They just want to own everything, right?
Right. You're still going to come up with the concept of pi. When you start drawing lines and circles, right, no matter what kind of creature you are. So it's isomorphic. There's some weird other kind of math would be intelligible to us because math is like it comes right out of the structure of the universe, space-time, particle universe. That's where math comes from. It isn't something humans created. It's something we discovered.
And like before the Big Bang question too, they say, all the laws of physics break down, the math breaks down, everything. So yeah, they're going to need some different math, right?
Yeah.
And then that will explain, these things. So it's okay to have, like a different system of math. The Christians just seem to be wanting to own everything, including laws of logic, math, where everything came from. And it's like, again, even if you grant it, I still don't see how it changes reality. You're back to a brain in a vat, right? It's like, okay, that's what we are.
So here's the part where it gets really stupid. They attempt to conduct an internal critique of non-Christian worldviews. And they do it without doing that at all. That is not what they're doing. They're using their ideas, their presuppositions, their God ideas to try to critique atheism. And they want atheism, like JimBob, what the hell does he do? He'll ask you a question, right? And you can't answer the question because the question is written in his worldview. And he thinks he's doing an internal critique of your worldview when what he's doing, in fact, is, asking you when you quit beating your wife.
Right.
It's just so they never actually pull this off. And they like I read Bonson and Van Til's books, and they strawman the shit out of naturalism and atheism, and they can't help it because that's the only thing they know. It's the only thing that makes sense to them. He shows that non-theistic worldviews fail to provide a cogent, consistent basis for these fundamental features. By internal critique, he means analyzing worldview on its own terms. And so basically they're posing a challenge to us. Can we explain reason and logic and all of that stuff? And they want us to explain it in their terms. According to
we don't have to. Yeah, not believing in God doesn't mean you have to explain all these other things.
Yeah, so he comes up with, okay, here's a good example.
It also doesn't mean you can't believe in things too, right? Right, Mike? I mean, you can believe that, meditation does things for you or whatever.
Okay. Hold on a minute.
And, not believing in God doesn't mean you can't have all these other so-called spiritual beliefs or whatever. It's expanded definition kind of leaves out the supernatural, but it's a gray area because I think people have genuine experiences, so I wouldn't call them supernatural, although the interpretation could be. Mike's mic is still screaming, I guess.
Yeah, he may be having to adjust something.
But again, though, if God, made a material universe, which it seems to be, we are still stuck with a material universe. They just want to suspend everything that they're trying to say that God did. The reason that the universe is, that people can't fly is because you can't fly. But if you write a Bible story, all of a sudden somebody can fly. So it's Okay, well, God defies it, but that's where we ask the questions of there's no evidence for it. And then you're just going to say, well, you don't have to explain a miracle. Now debate me, right? And it's like, it ain't nothing left.
Do these geniuses ever explain from their point of view what a random process would be? There's no inherent reason nature should behave uniformly. You're right. There is no inherent reason why it should, but it does.
Yeah, it does.
And we have no assurance that it will. I mean,
right.
everybody knows that. I mean, it's not a secret, but
it's
necessary processes.
Necessary for us to be here at all, to be talking about this, for all of these things to work in a regular manner, for logic to be uniform, and for there to be regularity in the universe. There's nothing we can do about that. That's where we find ourselves. And it is no different than saying God did it or it just is. There's absolutely no difference in those positions.
There's no difference, right? I'm seeing a pattern, Mike. These arguments are all turning out to it doesn't make any difference. And that's why I've just reached the point where, okay, your God exists. It doesn't make any difference, right?
It doesn't make any difference. So they say if ultimate reality is purely matter and motion, there seems to be no explanation for the universal, immaterial, unchanging norms like the laws of logic. Okay, that's just a pure bullshit garbage statement, right?
That's Ken Ham and Frank Turek use that all the time. You're just molecules in motion.
Other than laws of logic, what do they mean? I mean, what are the other universal, immaterial, unchanging norms? If it's morality, here's a hint.
Yeah.
Norms do change.
They put morality up on the same stage as existence itself, right? As matter.
It doesn't belong there.
No, it doesn't belong there. It's not that high. It's something that humans do amongst themselves. Mammals do it, kind of. So purely matter and motion. So this is that overly reductive thing where it's like, oh, I'm doing an internal critique, and you just say that everything is just matter and motion. Everything is just chemicals moving around, atoms in motion. It's like, nobody says that. Because there's a hell of a lot more going on than that. There's life, there's biology, there's humans, there's evolution.
It's a yes and no. Yeah. Yes, we're made of molecules, but it's more than just a bunch of molecules, right?
Yeah. It's like, okay, if acid is just made of atoms, and if sugar is just made of atoms, why can't I put acid in my coffee? It's just atoms, right? So when they say just, they're doing a reduction, and a reduction is misunderstood as being some metaphysical, this is what it is, right? That's not it. Reduction is a way of explaining things.
It's an attempt to leverage their worldview against another worldview, because just is minimizing it. It's showing almost a contempt to it. And what materialist or naturalist uses just, know?
Yeah.
Or maybe he adds over against some sort of dualistic view of the world, because there's matter, there's energy, and there's consciousness, which is a thing in and of itself. Well, we might say, no, it's just matter and energy, but we're not going to say that it's consciousness. And so still, it's just biasing their own particular worldview and looking at everything in terms of their worldview, even though they're claiming that they're doing an internal critique.
It's just attacking atheists. Again, it's like you said, talking down that, you're just molecules in motion. But once again, so is the Christian. You're made of molecules. You're moving around. You're molecules in motion too. It's when you don't think about it, it's like, they're just, it's the just word doesn't belong. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't belong in reduction. We are molecules and we're moving around. There you go.
Right. So like reduction is basically something that I had a long talk with ChatGPT about. We actually had an argument. But when you reduce something, you can.
Is it still talking to you?
Oh, it's kind of pissed. It's kind of pissed. It kicked me out of the bed. I'm sleeping on the couch. So anyway, it's a little pissed. But like a reduction, you can do a reduction on an object. You take an object like an oak tree, right? And I can reduce it. And what that means, I'm going to come up with a whole list of explanations and descriptions and human things that I can talk about to explain the oak tree to you, right down to the chlorophyll and the chloroplasts and all of it in as much detail as you want, but it's going to be a massive amount of reducing, right? And you never come to like look at one thing. It's now an interesting analogy or similarity here is people say, oh, the table is mostly empty space, because we know that electrons are tiny and the nucleus is very tiny, very, very tiny. It's like if it was the size of a walnut, I think the electrons would be out there around, I don't know if it's a football, I can't remember. But anyway, it's unbelievably empty space. But okay, so and that brick wall is mostly empty space. Okay, we've reduced it. We've looked at it from an aspect of something we've learned about physics and said it's mostly empty space, right? So why the fuck can't you run through it? You're not a fucking neutrino. If you were a neutrino, you'd go right through that concrete wall. But you are not a fucking neutrino. You are another thing in the world. You are a human being, a big chunk of object, right? And if you hit that brick wall, you're going to hurt your head. So it doesn't matter if we reduce it to empty. I mean, if you reduce it to empty space, why can't you just run through it? Why don't atheists think they can just run through walls? Well, because we're not idiots. You are.
That's what that one video I think he was on, Closer to Truth, that we were talking about before, where he says too often scientists are either going too micro or too macro, and they're leaving out the other, right? You have to put it all together, right? Yeah. So you've got this here, but you also have what's going on the macro where, like you said, you're going to run into the wall.
Yeah, and ultimately you're dealing with ordinary life, ordinary common sense life, in which you are an object in that universe, and there are solid things around you, and the table is solid. You cannot drive your fist through it.
Unless it's a miracle. Unless it's a miracle, and then you don't have to explain it, and then it's like, well, that's not fair.
Yeah.
That's saying, well, Spider-Man exists, you just don't see him because you don't believe. He's actually climbing around on the building right now. Okay.
Yeah. Well,
right.
And if you understand quantum mechanics, there is a possibility that you could drive your car through a cement wall and there'd be a 1 in an infinitesimally small probability of you getting through that wall without any interaction with any other particle. But just because we know that about quantum mechanics doesn't mean you can drive through the wall.
Yeah, you can't apply that to your toaster, right? You can't apply that to your toaster. Like that's what Wayne was doing. He's taking he's taking something very micro and he's applying it to something very macro in a toaster. And it's like, it doesn't work that way. It only works like Mike was saying, way, way down here in this quantum level. It's not manifesting in your toaster. I'm really trying, Wayne. It's not manifesting in the toaster.
I'd like some toast, but I don't have any butter or jelly.
Oh, I need some toast. Man, I want toast. Anyway, guys, there's a lot more to this, and I'd like to continue it, but I kind of got to go. I got to go within like 3 minutes here.
I think just enough pre-sup for a day.
Yeah. You guys want to hang? This
JimBob's an idiot.
Logic. Okay, this next one attempts to treat logic as a product of the brain or evolutionary development. What they claim here, again, they think it's an internal critique. It is not. It's a critique from their point of view. But I would like to return to that. But I got like a lot of things happening right now that I got to go attend to. So.
All right. Well, we'll continue it with JimBob is an idiot part 2.
Okay. Unless you guys want to stick around and talk, I don't need to be here.
Well, I've got some things I take care of, and like I say, you should only take pre-sup in doses,
in small chunks, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll get back to this anyway. Okay, so
make a bookmark.
Black Cruel World. Yeah.
Goodbye.
Thanks, everybody.
Yep, thanks. Sort of abrupt. Sorry.